Most of you are probably aware that internet legend and international man of mystery John McAfee has died, reportedly taking his own life. We don't know for sure. The autopsy results have not been released yet, but preliminary reports suggest that he did take his own life. Now, the reason this is shocking to most people, if you haven't been following the story, is that McAfee repeatedly said he would never do this. So much so, they got a tattoo that said whacked. If he ended up dying, it was because someone whacked him. But McAfee is a strange character. Perhaps this is all an elaborate plot to troll the world on his way out. Shortly after he died, someone posted to his Instagram account the giant letter Q. Many people are speculating as to what it might mean, what his dead man switch contains, what's inside the image, but Instagram deleted it. Now we're getting an interesting development. The wife of John McAfee says he was not suicidal and that they had spoken just a few hours before he died, where he told his wife he loved her and would call her that evening. In fact, prison guards prison authorities even suggest that he was not in any way atypical. He seemed like he was living a normal life. But they also say he did ask for quiet time. Interesting. Now, why would he do that and then later be found dead unless the story is just true or unless the authorities are lying? But if the authorities were lying, why would they say he was acting typically? Wouldn't they just say he was acting erratically to cover up whatever misdeeds are happening? I don't know for sure. But I want to show you what his wife said and just go through what we know and don't know about the story and ask some questions. Although sometimes just asking questions is misinterpreted, but we don't know the full details of this yet. It very well may be that John McAfee was just a prominent internet troll. He knew how to play that game and he wanted to go out with a bang, or maybe he really did have dirt on some bad people working within the government. I wouldn't be surprised, to be completely honest. I mean, this is a guy who knows computers and he wanted to run as a libertarian candidate. He was not supportive of the establishment. So surprise, surprise, they came after him, claiming that he had hidden crypto accounts. We don't know for sure. What we do know is that even among mainstream media personalities, they're now talking about how, well, the narrative is breaking. You'd think some of these leftist publications would mock and ridicule someone like me for simply saying I don't trust the reporting coming out and I want to see the evidence. But no. Even left-wing personalities are saying they don't believe it. Even left-wing publications are saying they don't believe it. And that says a lot. It's not just about John McAfee. It's also about the verb people are using, Epsteined. Because most people, left or right, do not believe the official narrative on what happened to Epstein. We do have some developments on what's happening with the guards and what's happening to some of the victims and what they're asserting about what's currently happening with the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. Could it be that the establishment, the tricks, the deep state is failing, struggling to retain control of the narrative? Or could it be that we are all just wrapped up in this movie world perspective where we think life is just more fantastic than it really is? Maybe life is really just boring. Maybe John McAfee just couldn't take being a 75-year-old man in prison who knew this was the end of the line. That after he gets extradited, he goes to the U.S. and that's it for him. But he was still able to influence the world with his tweets. So why would someone who reveled in the attention just end it there? Truly, we have a mystery on our hands. So we must take a look at what was said by John McAfee's wife and look around the circumstances of his arrest and what the prison officials are saying about what happened, and then talk about the narrative. That's right, the narrative from the mainstream media. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com, become a member to get access to exclusive members-only segments from the Timcast IRL podcast, but also to support our work. Your membership, that money, it supports the infrastructure of the website, and it makes sure we can bring on more amazing journalists. Why we just hired Cassandra Fairbanks. You know her, you love her. She's writing articles for us. She's going to be getting her own team, her own newsroom, and we have another writer who is working on paranormal mysteries and stories like this. When you become a member at timcast.com, you are ensuring that we can keep doing this work in the face of all of the censorship. So please go to timcast.com, sign up. But don't forget, like this video. It's very important. Subscribe to this channel and share this video with your friends, because If you truly believe that the videos I'm producing are good and that the work I'm doing is good, or at the very least, maybe you hate me, but you hate the likes of CNN more, help me at least do better than they do, right? All right, share this video. Let's read the story, in fact, from CNN. Now, let me just stop for a second. There's a reason I chose CNN as the lead source for the story about John McAfee's wife and his life, because CNN is considered by many to be untrustworthy. I find them to be untrustworthy. And if they're making these claims, it brings up a lot of interesting questions about how far the narrative can go and what people are willing to believe, even CNN. I'll put it this way. If CNN is the most trusted name in news, as they say, well, then don't get mad at me when I'm reading from them and they say something ain't right. CNN reports John McAfee was not suicidal, says widow of antivirus software magnate. The widow of controversial antivirus software magnate John McAfee said her husband was not suicidal and blamed the U.S. authorities for this tragedy after he was found dead in his cell in a prison near Barcelona on Wednesday. The 75-year-old McAfee, who had multiple run-ins with the law, was awaiting extradition after being charged with tax evasion in the U.S. last year. Speaking to reporters outside the prison on Friday, Janice McAfee demanded a thorough investigation, saying she wanted answers of how this was able to happen. The cause of McAfee's death is under investigation, a spokesman for the Superior Court of Catalonia told CNN this week. Janice McAfee's lawyer, Javier Villalba, I don't know how to pronounce it, told reporters Friday his client is waiting for the official autopsy to be done, adding, the family has requested a second and independent one. Quote, I blame the U.S. authorities for this tragedy because of these politically motivated charges against him. My husband is now dead, Janice said during a statement. His last words to me were, I love you and I will call you in the evening, Janice said. He would have never quit this way. He would never take his life this way ever. His death came after a ruling from a 3-judge panel at Spain's National Court in Madrid this week that McAfee could be extradited to the United States to face charges there. That decision could still have been appealed to a larger panel of judges at the same court, according to court documents. Janice said Friday, the Spanish court's decision to extradite him did not come as a surprise, and they had a plan in place to appeal it. So the fight wasn't even over. McAfee didn't even lose. He could have just went on trolling the internet, making his posts and sitting in his cell with a smile on his face, like the photos show. What was this really about? No idea. McAfee claimed apparently, some rumors circulate about a lot of wild claims made by McAfee about donating laptops and finding spyware and accusing the U.S. of wrongdoing. Perhaps. There are many prominent dissidents who believe that McAfee really did have evidence against corrupt U.S. officials. Maybe even people like Edward Snowden. Now, I don't want to assert what Snowden thinks or may know, but he then goes on to say something about Julian Assange could be next. Well, let's keep reading. They're going to say, McAfee had a cellmate at the prison, but that person was not in the cell around the time that McAfee was found dead. A prison official who asked not to be named told CNN. The official added that the other person was out doing other normal activities at the prison. Asked if authorities had imposed special monitoring measures on McAfee in his cell, the official said, I'm not aware of that. McAfee was arrested in Spain in October after being indicted in the United States for tax evasion months earlier. He allegedly failed to file taxes for 4 years despite earning millions in income between 2014 and 2018 from promoting cryptocurrencies, consulting work, speaking engagements, and selling the rights to his life story for a documentary, according to court documents. The amount he owed was not specified in the indictment. The Spanish judges approved his extradition to face charges for the 2016, 17, and 18 tax years. McAfee, founder of the eponymous antivirus software firm, with which he is no longer affiliated, was also indicted in March on separate fraud and money laundering charges. The U.S. Department of Justice alleged that he and a business partner participated in a scheme that earned more than $13 million by falsely promoting cryptocurrencies to unwitting investors. McAfee, was he pumping and dumping garbage crypto? I don't know. Maybe. If that's the case, wouldn't Elon Musk be facing some serious charges as well? Perhaps. And well, that's yet to be seen. Now, the thing about Elon Musk is, well, he's not running to other countries. And if he was, they'd probably just fine him. But McAfee was a maverick, to say the least. Now, he claims he didn't actually have any of that crypto, that it wasn't true. The accounts were basically empty. The money slipped through the fingers of Team McAfee. They don't have it. They were alleging that he had hidden crypto accounts. That's a scary reality. I mean, think about it. You could be arrested from crypto trading, and the government could just say, we know you have these accounts and you have lots of money. We want it. But what if you don't? What if you really don't? How do they know and how do they prove it? I mean, the same is true for anything. The government could claim that you buried a bunch of gold in your backyard and demand it. And you could, I don't have gold in my backyard, Lyle. We know you do. You could have a conversation with someone where you jokingly mention burying gold. And then the government could say, we demand taxes on the gold you have because we saw the messages, and then go after you. And then what do? If the government is charging you for something that they can't even prove, you see where this is getting scary. If they're claiming McAfee had hidden accounts, they need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. McAfee doesn't need to prove his innocence. So why would he take his own life? I mean, it seems like he still had the opportunity to appeal. His fight wasn't over. Interesting, to say the least. The final hours of John McAfee. This is where things get interesting. Questions start popping up. What do people believe in? Is the narrative breaking down? From the Daily Beast. Mind you, the Daily Beast is a mainstream establishment publication. They write, hours before news of his death was made public, the multimillionaire fugitive had reportedly asked Spanish prison guards if he could have some alone time. They say after the 75-year-old received official word at 4 p.m. yesterday that he would be extradited to the U.S. to face tax evasion charges. McAfee reportedly asked jail workers at the Barcelona prison, located in Sant Esteve de Ses Reviers, I can't pronounce that, if he could be alone for a few hours in his cell. According to the Spanish daily Diario AS. Diario. That's a terrible word to translate to English. Normally a prisoner deemed suicidal would be obliged to be accompanied by another inmate. But McAfee was not considered by prison authorities to be suicidal. Penitentiary rules also allowed him the right to time alone. Could it be that whoever had it out for McAfee waited until that moment when he asked for alone time to move in? And if that's true, that would mean that they had access to his cell. What would Occam's razor suggest? This is where things get a little bit tricky. I mean, somebody with access to the cell able to open the door and go in? Was the door locked? I don't even know. Going in and overpowering him? I don't know. Maybe this is just a man who got the news that he would be extradited. The fight was over, and this is the end of the rope. So what did he decide to do? He decided to troll the world with one of the most epic trolls ever. But his wife said he wasn't suicidal. He said he would call her. Perhaps the phone call was a ruse. When he said, I'll call you in the evening, he knew that would raise alarm bells. But that is too conspiratorial. The idea to assume that John McAfee was planning this elaborate plot saying, I love you, my wife, and I'll call you later, but it was a big trick. You have to take several leaps of faith to believe that was true. But then what are you supposed to believe? That someone snuck into his cell at the opportune moment to end his life? I feel bad about this story. I really do. McAfee was cool. But whether you like the guy or not, he was a cool dude. He was this crazy, eccentric, flamboyant, bombastic troll. He was a smart guy. So it's shocking, to say the least. Daily Beast say McAfee was nabbed at Barcelona's airport at the request of the U.S. Justice Department on October 3rd, 2020, as he was preparing to board a flight to Istanbul with a British passport. Law enforcement officials had been alerted to his presence after he posted on social media near Tarragona in Catalonia. Perhaps a big mistake on the part of McAfee. He doesn't have a good history with posting photos of where he is and then people finding out where he is, but I'll leave that for another day, that story. The ruling by Spain's High Court, the Audiencia Nacional, was a critical blow to the entrepreneur known for his penchant for drugs, sex, and scandal. Ultimately, the court ruled against all of McAfee's claims that he was being politically persecuted for his activism against the U.S. tax system. Could it be that he wasn't paying taxes and that was his activism? Quote, there is no supporting evidence that such a thing could be happening, the High Court ruled, maintaining that the internal motivations for why McAfee did not declare his taxes during that period did not matter. The court added that McAfee's claims had more to do with his subjective convictions and allegedly exculpatory justifications that have no solid base in reality. The country's top court insisted that the software entrepreneur's importance socially, economically, or in any other area did not give him immunity. Now, I'll explain something to you guys who aren't familiar with this. For American citizens, no matter where you are, no matter where you work, you could leave the U.S., get a work visa for Spain, and if you make money, you must pay the U.S., one of the only countries in the world, if not the only, that charges taxes to people who don't even live there. Could it be that McAfee was saying, I don't live there, I ain't paying these taxes? Seems like he even admitted that much. Or could it be that the U.S. government will make an example of anyone who dares challenge the tax system? Why? Probably one of the most threatening things a person could do. If a lot of people just tax protested, it would be devastating for the U.S. McAfee was high profile, and he was advocating for this. Naturally, they can't have that. There's a story several years ago about a couple in, I believe it was New Hampshire, I'm not entirely sure, that was refusing to pay taxes, and the feds came in, surrounded the house, and it was pretty brutal. In fact, my friend Luke Rutkowski may know, I believe he was actually there. The government, I tell you this, man, Al Capone got away with so much. He was a very, very bad dude, hanging out with some bad boys. But they got him on tax evasion. That's the story. Because you can break the law, but if you cross the IRS, oh boy, do they come for you. That's what I love about taxes. On tax forms, they say, even if you make money selling illicit things, you better report the revenue. That's what's so funny. And apparently they won't report you if you claim like I made money doing things you're not allowed to do. They're like, just give us our cut and carry on. McAfee wasn't doing that. You see how serious things get. They go on to say, the court was not buying it. This is not life imprisonment. Even in the case of most even in the case most unfavorable to his interests, it found. And in the second case, the court said it did not see that McAfee was suffering from serious health problems, an issue that would at any rate be only taken into account at the moment that extradition is carried out. While his death is being considered a suicide, prison workers were nevertheless shocked that McAfee had taken his life. One prison official described McAfee as a prisoner for economic crimes with an absolutely normal life in jail. McAfee's death has inspired several inexplicable twists, including a suggestion by former NSA consultant and data privacy advocate Edward Snowden that hacker Julian Assange could be the next to die in jail. Europe should not extradite those accused of nonviolent crimes to a court system so unfair and prison system so cruel. The native-born defendants would rather die than become subject to it. Julian Assange could be next, Snowden tweeted on Wednesday. But it seems that Snowden's real claim is that McAfee actually did take his life because he doesn't want to face what Americans call justice. I actually think we have a decent justice system in this country, better than many others. And I don't necessarily agree with Edward Snowden if that is what he's trying to say. He's implying that Julian Assange would decide to take his own life instead of coming to the United States. Maybe. I don't know. I can't read minds. In life, McAfee embraced conspiracy theories while in jail. He wrote that he would never take his own life. Quote, I am content in here. I have friends. The food is good. All is well. Know that if I hang myself a la Epstein, it'll be no fault of mine, McAfee tweeted last October. He has inspired conspiracy theories in his death as well. On Wednesday, an ominous Instagram post with the letter Q appeared on his official account shortly after reports of his suicide had been made public. McAfee's lawyer, Javier Villalba, told Reuters on Thursday that McAfee died out of pure fear of what his life would be like having to face U.S. charges. This is the result of a cruel system, she proclaimed, that had no reason to keep this man in jail for so long. U.S. prosecutors will likely ask the judge overseeing the case to dismiss the charges against McAfee in light of his death. Interesting. Very, very interesting. There's something else that's coming out of this. Of course, you still have I guess, derisive posts about conspiracy theories, saying anybody who claims it's a conspiracy is full of it, blah, blah, blah. Take a look at this article from the Daily Beast. Q post on John McAfee's Instagram page unleashes conspiracy wave. The death of the notorious and allegedly violent software tycoon was always going to be an event. Somehow it got weirder. Now, initially, this article incorrectly described my political affiliations. I reached out to the author and simply and politely asked if they could correct it, and they said absolutely, and they immediately issued that correction. So thank you, and with respect, when someone makes a mistake and they immediately correct it, I respect it 100%. So thank you to the Daily Beast for removing the incorrect insinuation of my political beliefs. Now they just call me a person on the right. That's fine, whatever. People have their perspective, but the way they described me before was just grossly incorrect. But that's not what's relevant. Okay, I don't want to harp on that. They go on the story and talk about what happened. What's interesting is this. They say, Newsmax host Steve Cortez tweeted to his 222,000 followers, quote, "So if Jeffrey Epstein got Vincent Fostered, then did McAfee just get Jeffrey Epstein?" Tim Pool, a social media personality on the right, tweeted to his 820,000 followers, "Bull effing ish." I didn't even say what that meant, but that's what they quote. Progressive social media personality Brooklyn Dad Defiant wrote to his more than 900,000 followers, "John McAfee died today. They said it was suicide, but he says he didn't do it." Wow. I mean, Brooklyn Dad Defiant is a leftist anti-Trump personality. The fact that you are seeing Newsmax on the right, they say I'm on the right, but let's be real, moderate personality Tim Pool and leftist personality all questioning the narrative. That says something, doesn't it? That says something about their ability to maintain control of what people see, hear, and think. That, to me, is one of the most incredible outcomes of this story, and perhaps what McAfee was really going for. If this really was McAfee taking his own life and a major troll, perhaps he decided that with his last effort, he would confuse everyone to the point where no one could believe the mainstream media. Maybe. Or maybe he was just a wild and crazy guy who wanted to go out with a bang. Or maybe he had evidence and somebody wanted to stop him. Maybe he was, as they say, Epsteined. Which brings me to Epstein. You may have seen the story. Seems to be that there actually was some kind of conspiracy. While many people were dragged for insinuating that what happened to Jeffrey Epstein was a conspiracy, we now have criminal charges. Interesting. The AP reported on May 21st, about a month ago, or just over a month ago, Epstein guards to skirt jail time and deal with prosecutors. The AP, the AP is the bastion of mainstream media. They said, the two Bureau of Prisons workers tasked with guarding Epstein the night he took his own life in a New York jail cell have admitted they falsified records, but they will skirt any time behind bars under a deal with federal prosecutors, authorities said Friday. The prison workers, Tova Noel and Michael Thomas, were accused of sleeping and browsing the internet instead of monitoring Epstein the night he took his own life. They were charged with lying on prison records to make it seem as though they had made required checks on the financier before he was found in his cell. So think about that. Not the conspiracy everybody expects. You know, a lot of people are, what was the joke we heard that McAfee is found with Clinton-esque bruises on his neck. It's a joke. Everybody calm down. I don't think that's true. It's a joke. But we do have a conspiracy. Two prison guards falsified records. And a conspiracy is, more than one person plotting some criminal activity or unethical activity in secret. They've pleaded guilty to this. In private, they did. Now, does anybody really believe that the official narrative on Epstein is true? I don't think so. Now, there's some problems here. Perhaps we all just got wrapped up in the movies and in stories. Maybe the world is really boring and we pretend like it's fantastical and exciting, because otherwise life is kind of boring and routine. We're so used to watching movies. So many people believe silencers are a real thing. You know, pew, pew, pew. Those aren't real. You can't do that with the gun. Just not true. But so many people believe it. So many people watch movies and believe fake movie tropes. Oh no, someone's firing at you. Better hide behind a car. That won't help you. They do it anyway. Well, the engine block will. Could it be that we're so used to movie narratives, we can't just recognize that sometimes people take their own lives and that's it? And life is just boring? Or is that idea naive? Is it naive to excuse the fact that there are dirty, manipulative, and corrupt people out there that would do corrupt things? I mean, look at these guards. Initially, they said it was crazy to believe there was a conspiracy, and at the very least, we got the level 1 of conspiracies on a scale of 1 to 100, with 100 being like the craziest conspiracy and 1 being like, well, there was a conspiracy. I think we're at a 1, maybe a 2. So it did happen. These people did conspire to commit a crime. They've pleaded guilty to it, I guess. Could it be even worse? Yeah, we don't have evidence for that. But there are certainly people who are not satisfied with these stories. Take a look at this story from just the other day from Business Insider. Jeffrey Epstein accuser says she doesn't believe Ghislaine Maxwell is actually in jail and thinks she may very well be in Trump Tower. I'm not convinced she's in Trump Tower. This one seems a little bit out there, to be completely honest. Insider reports. Maria Farmer, an Epstein accuser, doesn't think the Epstein associate is in jail. Farmer says she wants proof and thinks that Maxwell may be in Trump Tower. They say Maxwell, a former socialite, is being held in a Brooklyn, New York jail without bail while awaiting trial in connection with accusations, the Epstein accusations. Farmer, however, voiced doubts about Maxwell's whereabouts in a newly released 3-part docuseries titled Epstein's Shadow. Ghislaine Maxwell, which premiered on Peacock on Thursday. I mean, this is NBC's streaming platform. Forgive me. After this giant conspiracy theory I've lived, that I don't believe anything. I want proof. I'd like to see her. She may very well be in Trump Tower. Was it a conspiracy theory? Or was it a conspiracy when ABC suppressed the reporting? Remember this one? Project Veritas got access to this secret recording. I think it was Amy Rohrbach, was that her name? Where she said 3 years prior, they had him. They had the interviews. They had him. But ABC said no. Was that a conspiracy? Or was that just a corrupt media outlet or a callous media outlet not wanting to cover news that could be bad for their friends, the Clintons, in an election year? Perhaps. But we do know the news was suppressed. It was called a conspiracy theory. The idea that Epstein was doing anything wrong was a conspiracy theory. Now we have accusations made about Bill Gates and Bill Clinton being friends with Epstein. Will those remain conspiracy theories? The joke now is that what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and the news? About 8 months. Haha. No, I'm not a big fan of conspiracies simply because you need evidence. There are a lot of people who are mad that I don't speculate more. Well, I don't want to assert speculation as fact. I won't do that. Certainly, we can have these interesting conversations and talk about what McAfee's wife actually said. But to entertain a story without evidence, I can't do it. I can't. It's just not possible. But I'll tell you this, man. We have another story. This time for Pointer. U.S. ranks last among 46 countries in trust in media. Wow. Reuters Institute report finds just 29% of people surveyed in the U.S. said they trust the news, compared to 45% in Canada and 54% in Brazil. Well, I blame CNN and MSNBC because they lie nonstop. Now, to be fair, there are many Democrats in this country who don't believe Fox News, but any rational person who pays attention to politics knows that Fox News, while biased, does entertain the opposition, probably telling the truth in most of their articles, and CNN lies all the time. Think about what this means, though. It could be that McAfee is just somebody who took his own life, and it's another tragic story. I mean, if you're thinking about anything like that, you need to get help. You need to make sure you're checking in on your friends, because it's a sad story. Could it be that the reality is we just don't trust our media anymore? We don't believe their narratives. The narratives are shattered. This could be a good thing, but it could also be a bad thing. We need trust in the media because we need a real media apparatus to challenge the powers that be. The problem is in this country, the media has become a tool of the powers that be, so much so that nobody wants to believe anything they say. Now in the United States, we are dead last among 46 countries, according to the Pointer Institute. Now, Pointer, they're the ones who certify whether or not someone's a fact checker on Facebook. Well, I got news for you, Pointer. There are fact checks on my videos and other content that are lies. How do who watches the Watchmen? Who fact checks the fact checkers? I'll tell you what, I'm going to hire someone whose job is going to be to just go through fact checks and then rate them as true or false. That's right. Because I've had a fact-checking organization claim that one of my tweets about Epstein was fake, even though it was 100% true. They said, yeah, well, we didn't like the way you wrote it. But it was true. Yeah, well, too bad. They then wrote an article confirming everything I tweeted, but said the way he tweeted it, we didn't like, there was no context. What do you mean? Well, it's Twitter. You get 280 characters. It used to be less than that. It's time to fact check the fact checkers. It's time to figure out what's going on. And while I don't know if we'll ever find out what happened to McAfee or Epstein, the least we can do is say, with trust being broken and questions being asked, we need people who are doing the real work to investigate and find answers, which is why all of you should go to timcast.com, become members, support our work, because we're going to be hiring some excellent people to challenge these stories, to investigate, and try to the best of our abilities to figure out what's really happening in this world and restore trust in the media. Certainly people trust their own sources. Conservatives trust conservative outlets. Democrats trust Democrat outlets, but something is wrong here. Maybe the reality is this 29%, it's just we're split down the middle. Perhaps Democrats just trust MSNBC but hate everybody else. Conservatives trust Fox but hate everybody else. So the reality is it's just tribalism. We got to change that. We got to figure out what really happens in these stories, and we have to do a better job. Otherwise, if people can't trust what's happening because we have deceptive, lying media, then politics will break downstream from this. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.